Hey everyone, Sean Maloney, Digital Business Masters. Another DBM strategy call, Mondays, 12 p.m. UTC every single week. Very much now focused on what's coming in 2025 because all stars are aligning, frankly. It's very, very easy now for us to not only build on what we've already achieved, but now to just follow the slipstreams that are happening in geopolitics, on macroeconomics, and just close the gaps. It's very, very easy now. It's just a case of making sure that we do that in the most efficient and careful manner. Of course, we're running businesses. Where do we get that pedigree from? How do are we able to talk at this level? Well, we realized the problem a long time ago, and we established the original incarnation of Digital Business Masters, which was basically looking for ways to provide solutions online, come from a pedigree of e-commerce and manufacturing and all sorts of things we've done over the past 30 years. But the main focus was to say, well, okay, hang on a minute. There's something wrong in the way that the fiscal systems operate. And what is it? We determined and figured out that quite quickly. That was down to the fiat system. We then went into sound money, whether that be gold or Bitcoin, combination of both. And over the years since then, we've built into the altcoin markets and ICOs and stable coins and smart contracts and all sorts of different things. So we're now across 14 different industry sectors. Very, very long standing in this industry. In the last few years, we brought together a group of like-minded people. You'll hear us talk about the DBM coaches. They're actually founders, actually, is what they really are. Very powerful and very knowledgeable, very caring individuals who want to make sure that they do their bit to help people what's called front running. Okay, so as soon as you understand the fundamental problem, then you're able to go and do something about it in your own life. And then you can help other people to do the same. And therefore, we can all front run global economics, which is exactly what we're doing now. And we've done for a while, actually. But in 2025, it's become particularly easy because of the nature of the powers that be, let's say, being a little less ignorant and arguably a little less complicit. You'll make your own judgments on red or blue, left or right on that. But governments generally are ignorant or complicit. Our job is to not worry either way. Our job is to make sure we understand that they are and put ourselves into what's called sound money. So that becomes a whole lot easier when either there's less complicity, which we're finding out right now is shaking out. It's surprising a few people, especially if you're looking at left and right wing politics. But equally, you're also looking at a level now of awareness. So there's less ignorance with regards to what's going on in terms of resetting global economics so that people no longer are pushed all the time by the fiat system. Either way, like I say, it doesn't matter to Digital Business Masters because we recognize this well over a decade ago, and we've been building on the basis of our own sound money ever since. So our objective now is to simply empower as many people as possible to do the same because it's a great way to live life. To have your assets working harder than you do is a great way to live life. That's really all it's about in the end. It's about having a balance sheet that perpetually creates income for you. In all that said, we're not here to give any financial advice. We don't want to be giving financial advice. We're always seeking financial education. Okay, there's a very, very nuanced difference. And it's a case of making sure that you understand that we're not here to do it for you. We're here to show you what we've done, and we're here to help you join the dots. Hopefully in a more and more and more efficient way as we get better and better and better at what we do, or moreover, we're able to see other parts of the economy and companies and countries doing it. So therefore we can follow in line with regulation and legislation. For the last decade, we've not had any of that. We've been defining things for ourselves, taking risks on our own, being put our head above the parapet with risk being shot off, even by people within our own community. You know, because it takes a very certain type of person to do this. It's mindset and skills first. Then you might get into systems if you're good. And if you're really good, you may start creating some income. But you better be good. Most people are still down at the mindset skills end, even though they don't want to admit it. That's where they are, because they want instant, quick gratification. Or if it doesn't work for them, it's somebody else's fault. In this world, it's about making sure that you take responsibility. So we're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to guide you as best we can on a blueprint. At the highest level, that blueprint now constitutes over 14 different industries. If you've done the blockchain assets course with me over the past 5 years, you'll know we talk about a blockchain universe. And in that blockchain universe are solar systems. And each of those, which is what these represent, these industries. Inside those solar systems are hundreds, if not now millions of planets that all constitute different companies inside the different solar systems that all represent different value propositions. Just like in the real world with real businesses. Billions of businesses exist on this planet, and they're all doing their best to solve problems and create value for other people. That's exactly what's going on, but on the blockchain sphere. All we have to do is identify real world problems, identify the best industries at the moment working on those problems, then the companies inside of that are doing the best inside of the solar systems, and then we decide to crowdfund them into existence by owning tokens or coins. A token is something that exists on somebody else's blockchain. A coin is something that exists on a private blockchain. We make those decisions every day of the week. Those decisions over time create equity. And with that equity on the balance sheet, we're able to leverage that into yield. And it's the yield that creates the cash flow. You take a proportion of that to pay yourself. The rest goes back into your business. We endorse 80-20, and you grow and grow and grow and grow your balance sheet into as many different industry sectors as you wish. When you get really good, you're able to select things you feel passionate about. We do a lot of work over in the recycling sectors, for example, where we're working to take plastic out of the oceans. That's a great thing to be doing. We're working in solar panel industries, whereby we have ownership of solar panels in South Africa. And we get paid every Friday because the sun shines. We're into Internet of Things. We're into real estate. We own real estate across the United States in places we've never been to. But we own tokenized property, and we take a rent every Friday. We own things in over the counter in the Philippines, where we compete with companies like MoneyGram to create liquidity that gives us yields of 10 to 16% a month. We own family trading companies over in Israel, creating Forex returns for us. We own sports industries in Saudi Arabia. You see the point? We own lots and lots of things. Shortly, very shortly, we're going to own health centers across the United States, designed to help self-care as opposed to healthcare. So there's no shortage of things to be doing. The question is, have you embarked on this yet? If so, why not? If that is a skills education gap, then fill the education gap by going to dbm.academy and learning how it's all done. If you've already embarked on this, many of you have been involved many, many years, but you've not fully understood why you embarked on it. You thought you were just throwing money at something, trying to buy success and getting a quick win. Maybe that's where you came from. Well, that's not how it works. If you've embarked on any of these different things and the companies within them, your job is to manage your assets and keep your assets moving until you get the result that you deserve. The result will either be you've stopped and failed because you've not taken responsibility, or it'll be you're working hard, keeping your assets moving, staying plugged in, getting the help when you need it to make sure that you get what you deserve. That's the mindset and skills side, right? Only you can decide. But when it comes to the proven pedigree of what you're looking at on this screen, it is irrefutable. It's not easy, but it is irrefutable. So this is the big premise. Everything we're going to talk about next is simply a tailwind on which for you to be able to get somewhere more quickly because you've stood on the fact that you're going to take responsibility for what you've done or what you're about to do. Either way, it demands skill, it demands mindset, and it demands a lot of support, it's got to be said, which is why we spend so much time in the workspaces every single day of the week inside the academy. Those who are most successful come to the workspaces. Yeah, success loves speed. So how do we help that structure? Well, everything I'm going to talk about next is overwhelming. Everything I'm going to talk about next takes a huge amount of energy to keep up with if you're going to make it the most efficient it can be. You can do platitudes, you can play at it, you can do this as a part-time, you can do whatever. But at the end of the day, if you want to keep up with the best in the business, people are doing this full time every day of the week, then that is a chargeable service, because we're putting a huge amount of effort and time into ensuring you don't have to in that sense. You can download very, very quickly information by being in the right place. And the right place to be at the basic level is the DBM hub, because then you've got 24/5 access from Monday through Friday, 24/5. So you talk access to coaches all day, literally, because we're global coverage, who are going to be there to help you as these quick, fast decisions can come along that mean you're going to be optimized, as opposed to missing that next thing. If you keep missing it, then it's going to take longer. Yeah, the success is always in the last 10 yards in business. If you really want to get down to it, and you really want to translate a lot of the things we're going to talk about now into what you're going to do every week, then that's where the workspaces come in, especially if you're organizing yourself with a 2025 cash flow plan. You need to understand what's happening, when it's going to happen, or the probabilities of when it's going to happen, what you're going to do when it does, in terms of reallocation, to optimize into your next best maneuver to create more income than you would have done either by doing nothing or the wrong thing. That's what the income subscription is all about. We focus there all the time, and we're doing it ourselves as well in real time, hence the power of the income subscription. Okay, very, very important to invest in yourself before you try and throw things at other things. You know, you can't buy success. You have to work and be really on top of what's going on. Hence, we do that on your behalf in many ways, and then we can talk about that so that you're going to be in a better place than you would have been on your own. That's the only way you're going to be successful in this industry. Well, all that to come into, again, I know I repeat this every week if you're listening to us as a regular, but it's very, very important that this penny drops, because this isn't easy. It's so hard, in fact, that most people, while they may understand it and they see it and they do appreciate it, they don't get it done, because it's equally easy to go back to working for the man. We see it all the time. And it's no disrespect to anybody. It's fine. You know, this running your own business, let alone a digital business, is obviously not for everybody. If it was, they'd all be doing it. So most people rubber band themselves back to either working for somebody else or owning a job. The left-hand side of the cash flow quadrant, and they'll spend a lifetime doing that, because they just don't have what it takes to either get the skills, or to, when they've got the skills, to actually apply with the discipline it takes to be able to get ahead of what's happening. Now, as I say, that's becoming a lot easier now because of global economics and global politics. So our expectation from 2025 to 2030 is you'll find an awful lot more people start to realize that they can use digital business in order to acquire assets that cash flow to fund liabilities, as opposed to spending 40, 50 years trying to buy liabilities with devaluing currency. It's becoming very obvious, right? So we're ready. We've set the blueprints. We're ready to go, but we can't change people's mindsets. All we can do is nurture them and help them get to where they are. So that's what the Academy spends most of its time doing. Now, as you go to another level down, it's all a case of just trying to see the wood for the trees. So what are we talking about here? Well, it's nothing special. It's nothing clever. It's just a case of understanding, if you're going to own assets, then which assets do you own? Especially when you're first starting out, your first 5 years. Which are the most effective, most efficient? Where should I be focused on? What do I need to have the most discipline in accruing and holding? Well, if you've been tracking, or even if you've not, just go back and track the price charts of Bitcoin since 2011, and hopefully you'll see the answers to that question. And then it's a case of, am I too late? No, people were asking me if we were too late to get into Bitcoin in 2014, 2017, 2019, 2023. Are we too late? Are we too late? No. The best decisions were made 20 years ago. One of the second best decisions made. You start the process and you stick to it. I'll talk in a minute why the probabilities of asset price discovery are just about to become even more aggressive over this next 3 to 4 years. It's pretty obvious what's happening if you understand macroeconomics. So therefore, the dollar cost averaging of Bitcoin is a prerequisite. It's a standard. It's something you do. Okay? Now, if you want to then start to convert some of that equity into cash flow, that's a different skill. You can't run a business off a balance sheet. You need to convert some of your balance sheet into things that create profit and loss, that cash flow. That's what you do, right? And we do that, and we've learned how to do that over many years in terms of identifying areas of the digital blockchain universe that are looking for liquidity. They're looking for companies, individuals, more and more individuals now than ever before. It was always, private equity or big banks or, the institutions who were doing this. Now it's individuals who can do it very easily, actually. I'm not saying it's easier in the sense of you can just go out there and speculate. You've got to really be careful and study this very, very carefully about what you're getting involved with. But the fact that we do that on many people's behalves ahead of time hopefully makes it easier. So we do that through stable coins, and we're focused always on targeting an average of 10% a month yield. Now, if you'd have said that to me even just 5 years ago, I'd have laughed at you, because we've been brought up with the mindset that you're lucky if you're getting 1-2% a year from the fiat system. Yeah. When you study it and you understand that they're making huge yields off the back of every pound and dollar and euro that you've got vested inside a bank, then you understand. We'll talk about how it is we've got closer to the money supply in a minute. Last but not least is altcoins. Now, altcoins are notoriously difficult. They're very attractive, very shiny. Whether you're trading them, whether you're being convinced to get into some copy bot, whether you're being convinced to get into some ICO, whether you're being convinced to get into some, pump and dump, they're very exciting. They're very attractive, right? These days it's memes, right? Very, very interesting, very powerful, especially if you can get involved with airdrops and all of things like this. But you really have to know what you're doing. But if you want to combine equity and yield, think about that. Then you're into a very, very rarefied space. That, based on what we've just heard over the weekend, recording this at the beginning of March 2025, then you'll know the power of what's just about to happen with what's called altcoin season. And the more seasoned, experienced people inside the DBM Academy are sat ready. We're already sat ready because we've been talking about this for a while. And it's a case of making sure now we take advantage of what's happening with the world's first crypto summit being hosted by none other than the White House. Never thought I'd be saying that sentence, but there we are. Now, before we go into the macro deeper stuff, let's just have a look at how it all works together, combined. Huge amounts of tailwinds coming through now, okay? We've had the FSAB, we've had, sound valuations come through late 2024. We know where we're going now with a highly probable Bitcoin reserve, very probable a crypto reserve, absolutely, but very much a Bitcoin reserve as part of that. It's clear what's happening now, and it's clear that that is a huge catalyzer, not just in the price of Bitcoin. That's great, that's fantastic, and obviously we're going to leverage the hell out of that, but it's all about how this creates ripples across the world about the fiat system and the revaluation, the sort of a backdoor revaluation. We've been talking about this for many, many, many years. The real reset started in 2008, and they've done all sorts of QT and QE and all that type of stuff over the past decade. QE 5, 6, I think we're into now. And they will keep doing that as long as bonds and the interest rates are fought between monetary and fiscal policy. But if you understand all that, then you just see that it was never a case of a direct reset. It was always a death by 1,000 cuts. And that's manifested itself in all sorts of chicanery. And, you know, you can have any opinions you want about how global economics works in terms of East versus West and Russia and what's going on with European politics and how it all comes together. It all equals the same thing in the end. You just continually put under the cosh because the fiat system can't sustain itself. You fix the money, you fix the world. So what's happening with the SBRs and what's going on with the sovereign wealth funds is something now that honestly we did not see coming this quickly. But we're very grateful that it's now here. And we're especially grateful, those of you who've been accumulating Bitcoin over the past decade, because now you can set yourself up for life, even if you just have 0.1 Bitcoin. That's how big it is. And then if you understand that you don't sell that Bitcoin or any of the other alts that are just about to go through their season again, you don't sell them. You never sell assets, ever, in any business, ever. You constantly collateralize your own balance sheet towards funding what's working, funding where the yields are, the cash flows are, and we've just spoken about the 14 different industry sectors. We do that in already. That's how diversified we are. You de-risk cash, and then you live off at 20% of the income, and you put 80% back as a standard, as a rule, right? There's obviously different things you do at different times, subject to your ambitions. Okay, so what the governments of the world use to reduce their debt of balance payments. Yeah, you get the irony. You see the irony? You're able to own what the governments of the world are using to reduce their debt and balance payments. That's how you get closer to the money supply. Put a 2 in the chat or put a comment in if you have listened to me talk about this slide over the past 5 or 6 years. Yeah, many of you long-standing clients of DBM who did the blockchain assets course far back as 2019, 2020. You'll have seen me talk about this. We co-wrote a book on this back in 2022 called Collaboration. You'll get it on Amazon. Now do you see what I was saying? What we were talking about all the time. Now, we didn't know how it would play out. We didn't know that global geopolitics would adopt what we've been talking about. We didn't know that. Honestly, we didn't know that. All we could ever have done, and what we did, was we recognized that at some point there had to be a return to what's called sound money. Yeah, Keynesian, Milton Friedman, Thatcherism, they've all just sort of played on the edges. And all the time, all it's done over the past, well, since Bretton Woods, so that's 75 years, you've just had a situation where on the right outside, not even mentioned on this particular infographic, are the unbanked. How many people in the world are unbanked? It's well over 2 billion. So they don't even get a say in any of this. There's total subsistence. They're just scraping as much as they possibly can just to stay alive. And then as you come in, you've got employed people, predominantly in the West, obviously, and business people. Yeah, you do very well. You can do very well in business, of course, in life. Of course you can. Of course you can, but it can take decades to get ahead. I still know people well into their 60s and 70s who can't stop working. They don't own balance sheets to speak of. They don't own buildings and equipment. They've leased everything. They've run a lifestyle business, and that's okay. But you're out on the extremities, and your energy you have to put in to sustain that is just, right? Then you've got the pension companies, institutions, then the big shareholders, which are sort of hand in glove there, then the banks, then the government, then the central banks. So the currency issuance affects those at the closest first. Yeah, we all look for breadcrumbs out on the outside that are dropped into us through interest rates and, you know, dividends coming out of institutions and pensions and everything else. And we give them the benefit of the doubt for decades, literally decades, well over half your life. You're giving the benefit of the doubt to others financial advisors, pension companies, banks, governments, brokerages. You're giving them the benefit of the doubt that they understand how to create enough growth on your blood, sweat, equity through currency to create enough purchasing power at the point you say, I'm tired now. I can't put any more energy in. I'm done, which is understandable when you get to 65, I dare say. But at the same time, it's not working like that because the extremities of this currency issuance don't go that far. So what do you find happens? You just have to keep putting the energy in. Now, thankfully, we live longer and healthier than ever before. That's a good thing. But what's the point of living longer and healthier if you can't maximize your opportunities in life? So we've been talking about this for half a decade, at least half a decade. You know, when we started to turn what we'd learned back in 2012 onwards into an educational vision. And all we've done, nothing clever. We've just accumulated Bitcoin. Now, where do you think Bitcoin now sits in this? And if you do own Bitcoin, have you naturally just gravitated yourself to the center of the money supply? Well, as of March the 7th, 2025, yes, you have. Indirectly, yeah? Now, there's still lots of things to shake out. There's still lots of things to do. But just the fact that that is being done has put plenty of people in the DBM Academy well ahead because of price discovery inside the fundamental base asset. So what does it look like in terms of where we are this week as a result of what's been a hugely tumultuous, if you believe the media and you listen to what's going on, they'll focus on one thing, right? Or maybe two or three things, just to keep things shaking up all the time. And I would suggest the editors and the news channels don't have this level of understanding to be able to help people who are their listeners, or they've no interest in it. That's been uncovered by Doge and USAID and everything else. A lot of that money that's been accumulated through taxpayers, US taxpayers as it happens, has gone out to all these channels for them to stay on a certain narrative. We've known about that for a long time. With the WEF, you have what you need and be happy, right? That type of narrative is dissolving now. One, because we've got people in power who are starting to shake the boat and drain the swamp. And two, people like your good selves are starting to observe what it is for you to be self-propelling, self-determining in what it takes to front run. Now we're at the level in 2025 at the DBM level where we can start to have another look at what's been going on over the past 25 years, actually longer, certainly since the late 90s, in terms of how this ongoing road to long-term low interest rates is perpetually cycled. And once you've been through it several times, rather than being a victim to recessions every 10 years, you end up being a beneficiary of the awareness of how long-term interest rates always push prices up. So now we're in another era. Arguably, my opinion, a stronger era than we even were back when we identified this with quantitative easing in 2011. And certainly when we saw it again in 2019 and 2020, pre-pandemic. We took full advantage of it then, and now we're going to take full advantage of it yet again. But this time on steroids, because of what Besant calls the 333 plan. If you don't understand the 333 plan, I would strongly encourage you to go and study it and understand what you need to be doing in the moment, every single day, every single week, to prepare more than you maybe already are to get ahead of what this 333 plan brings to the table. And this is before we even get to what's happening this week with regards to the short-term benefits of the world's first crypto summit being held at the White House. So this 333 plan is all about three things, as you might have guessed. GDP growth achieved at 3% per year. I'm talking very US here, but when I'm talking about US, it will infiltrate. You can already see it happening, right? The power has always been there, but it's now being directed into things that are productive and decisive and straight and business-like. I've said for years, we need business people in charge. Not everybody likes that because everybody's got this inflated, airy-fairy idea that everybody can be liberal and just get on with it, hope for the best. Obviously, that doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. You need to apply and then help people to be self-empowered. So 3% GDP is just onshoring. That's going to be a relatively easy thing to do in the grand scheme of things. But that 3% GDP is very important. That needs to be held. Okay. And it's not going to be so difficult for the US to do that. The Europeans, different animal. It's going to come down to their ability to get out of their own way and shake hands with Russia because we need cheap energy again, basically. Lowering budget deficits by 3%, 3% of GDP. That's Joe Baby drill. That's Doge putting themselves in a position where they're making things efficient again. And obviously people don't like it. Of course they don't like it. Everybody loves a free lunch. Everybody loves an easy ride. Everybody loves a check coming through the front door no matter what they do. Everybody loves working at home. They don't like it when things start getting upturned and shifted and looked at. Of course they don't. That's like any business. Those of you who've run businesses know what it's like when you start going after a department or an individual who's not pulling the weight. They don't like it. They'll cry out, holy hell. But it doesn't matter. It's a business. So they need the deficits to get to 3% GDP. That'll happen in time. The harder one is the US needs to get to 3 million barrels per day of oil, right? Again, whatever you believe with the environmental stuff, whatever you believe about the global warming things, okay, yes, we need to recycle. We believe strongly in recycling and getting waste out of the earth and making sure that we do things the right way. Of course we do. That is wholly different than destroying what it is to maintain living standards because people have this harebrained idea that you can create as much energy from renewables that quickly. It'll come in time, of course it will. But they need to get to that $3 million barrels per day. Now, it isn't going to happen. The US can't get to that quickly because it affects price of oil too quickly. And that affects the bond markets, more demand, it increases the yields and therefore interest rates go up. What we need is high price bonds, which create lower yields, which create lower interest rates. The price of oil is a big part of that, obviously. So like we discussed last week, the Russians and the Saudis and the US are together very, very lockstep now, which is an unusual thing. Yeah, not based on what we've had before when the global military complex and the dollar military complex has been, as it is still now doing in Ukraine right now. It's still being fed in. The Europeans are still at it. They're determined to keep throwing money. They're determined to put loans out into these warmongers on the face of it, looking like they're defending themselves. NATO's crept east for years. Russia did not creep west. They started to this past few years for obvious reasons. But the whole point of this is that there's a new world order. And it will be based on oil still for the foreseeable future. And that's okay. That's okay. We just need to make sure that less people are being killed and more people are getting a standard of living they deserve. So lower interest rates, that's the goal. That's what we're focused on. First world problems, everything else will come out in the wash. Okay, they do need peace. People need to stop being killed, but they need to make sure also that they're driving these higher price bonds. That's just the way it is. Just the way it is. We fought against this for years and years and years at DBM, trying to get behind the scenes with regards to the printing of currency, but we knew we couldn't fight it. So all we did was put our energy and effort into things that always increase in price whenever these big global changes take place. This hasn't happened since 2020, not to this level. So now when we're experienced, we're battle hardened, we're ready to go, and we understand the economics that sit behind it and the narratives. So the whole idea is medium term and short term. So medium term will be Doge cutting fiscal spending, okay? And that will include a softening of Russian sanctions. Now, that's very important for us as a business model, for those of you involved with that side of things, because a large part of what we've been involved with for the past 5 years has found itself under those sanctions. So it's actually doubly important that this medium-term shift takes place. And it's all going to be driven by cheaper oil out of Russia, because that's what the US needs, and cheaper gas into Europe, because that's what Europe needs. And they can fight all they want, but they're going to come to a deal, and that's a great thing. And most importantly, it'll stop people being killed at this stage. They'll find another reason to fight at some point. Don't worry about it. But we just want these short-term, medium-term things looked after. Now, the immediate short-term, the elephant in the room now, which, you know, we didn't know about this time last week, but now we do, is all about the world's first crypto summit at the White House, where it'll be Bitcoin Plus. I don't know how many of you picked this up. It only came out yesterday on a Sunday, which was interesting, because what we're going to find that happens from today is the ETFs and the city boys wake up. They can't do anything on weekends. That antiquated world of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right? We outplay that all the time. Bitcoin never sleeps, ever. So we've already moved on that. And now they're going to catch up. So that'll be the first maneuver that happens this week. Going to get a lot of people buying the news, right? Then it's a case of making sure that other countries, we've just heard now that China and Russia, just in the last 24 hours, have put forward suggestions that they're going to look at crypto standards and wealth funds built on crypto, which again, I'd never thought I would have heard myself saying, but here we are. And the US are going to front run that. The US are going to front run it. So we're going to find a huge amount out this week coming to this Friday. And it's all going to play into our hands in the short term as the medium term puts itself into play when it comes to the reallocation of GDP and budget deficits and oil spend. Yeah, all of it leads to lower interest rates, which always leads to prices going up in assets. Always. It must do. It has to. It's mathematics. So we'll see other countries doing it. So where next for Bitcoin? Well, who knows? But as I say, it doesn't really matter at this level that we operate at. We don't price watch. We look at fundamentals. And we keep the discipline going because we know that the baseline of what we have, just in Bitcoin, let alone all the other things that are going on. If you notice what's going on this week, it's Ripple, Solana, Cardano. Mentioned. These are mentioned by the top guy. Actually being mentioned by the top guy. Yeah. It's not, we know it's not fake news. People casting aspersions that it's fake news and everything else. But if you're not on Truth Social, get on Truth Social and make sure you're plugged into the right guy and just watch what he says, right? Whether you like it or not. It's all leading to a place that I've been best to explain today. Bit of a one down here. MAGA, make altcoins great again. Yeah, tongue in cheek. But you make your own decisions, guys. But at the end of the day, it's about making sure that you understand that Bitcoin is the daddy. Whatever Bitcoin does, goes. So we just ride that up now. And if you're wanting to front run, it's just a mathematical exercise. So do the 2025 DBM planner. Have a look at what the power of all those cash flows coming in from your various projects, reallocate that into proportional Bitcoin, collateralize, use that to fund your next month, your next month, your next month, your next month, and just let Bitcoin fund your business. You're sat on it right now. Okay. Now, one to watch, just to finish, is Master. Okay, it's Ticker Master, but obviously it's now called Strategy. Our friend, Mr. Saylor. Very, very interesting in terms of that already establishing itself as a private Bitcoin reserve. Think about that. Now, then we know they're going to audit the Fort Knox. We know that London has had to get rid of a lot of gold or move gold so that all the books balance and it perceives to the world that everything's in order. We know it's not in order. It hasn't been for years. But all we can do now is say, well, how are we going to front run the probabilities of another private company becoming a substantial Bitcoin reserve partner? And we know Mike Saylor was in the White House last week. So we're watching all that. And again, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are in all that. All that matters is business people owning Bitcoin as a fundamental of our balance sheet. We recognize these front-running signals and we just move with it. We don't go blindly into it. Don't speculate. We don't hope. We go in because of logic. And this is the third time we've done it. But this time, much, much more powerful than we've ever had it before. All right. So this is a lot to take in. Hence, we go through a standard in terms of how people are able to interface. keeping up with what I've just been talking about there is a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of observation. But some of us actually enjoy that. Some of us have the time to do it and have the privilege of being able to structure it in a hopefully understandable way that helps other people who may struggle to do that because they've got kids and jobs and running around. You're never going to keep up with it. So it's okay. You can buy that value. But seeing it as an overview like today and then doing it are two different things. Having your hand held, especially in what we're going to talk about next, which is the actual activation and doing side of what it takes to build, that is where the value is at DBM Academy. And it gets bigger and bigger and faster and faster. It can only go one way. And we very much welcome you joining us on that journey. Okay? So pick your level, be serious about what you're doing, invest in yourself, get the information, get the support, get the structure, get the mathematics, and then set your plan and ride this next 12 months like you've never ridden anything before. Hope that was useful. We'll see you on the next